Thank you. The political panel all-stars up shortly, Whānau. But now this week's one-on-one extra with Westpac Chief Economist Kelly Eckhold. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show and thank you for being available to the fourth estate. Your democracy is grateful.
Thank you.
Kelly, you have seen our new Reserve Bank governor's speech. She says inflation could be higher and the Reserve Bank could increase interest rates if the war drags on. What are your fears for the economy hearing that?
Well, I think we have got a pretty tough period ahead for the economy, regardless of what the Reserve Bank does, to be honest.
Yep.
I mean, this is the biggest oil shock that, frankly, we've probably seen since the 1970s.
Right.
I know it sounds alarmist, but I have to call it as I see it. Even in the 1990s, when there were significant wars going on in the Middle East, tanker traffic still continued. But basically, there's been only seagulls really going through that Straits of Hormuz now for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And the world is running out, really, particularly the bits of the world that we care about. So, we're kind of getting to the point where, in addition to prices for oil and petrol and everything going up a lot, which is really going to squeeze budgets, it's actually going to become increasingly harder, I think, for businesses to continue to invest and hire at the rate that we would expect them to as well. So
right.
I think there's decent prospects here that, we could go into more than just a flat patch in the middle of the year, that we might actually even go backwards.
A recession?
Well, I mean, a recession is 2 negative quarters, and I don't think we probably have a good reason to believe that. Still probably reasonable to expect that saner heads are going to bring this back under control within, say, a couple of months.
Yep.
But, it's certainly possible that we could go backwards for a quarter before things start to pick up again.
Wow. Right now we have exactly 21 days worth of diesel on land. The Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment has said that 8 ships carrying 20 days worth of diesel will reach New Zealand over the next 2 weeks. What the government doesn't mention, however, is that those tankers can sell the fuel to other markets before it arrives. What happens to the economy if those ships don't arrive with diesel?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the ones that are arriving in the next week or so are going to be okay.
Yeah.
What we don't really know about is what happens 2, 3, 4 weeks after that.
Right.
And the reality is that we're going to start running down those inventories pretty fast.
Yeah.
And at some point, we're going to have to start prioritizing where we want to use it. And you have to remember that for diesel, it's actually intrinsic to the production of food, transportation of goods around the country, the stuff that actually you kind of need, right?
Yes.
Like, because we can work from home and not drive the car or take the bus.
But you need the tractors pulling out the food, right?
That's right. You want to go to the supermarket and find there's something there.
Finance Minister Nicola Willis says worst case scenario will see inflation at 3.7%. But that seems to be incredibly optimistic of the Finance Minister, isn't it? 3.7?
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of said before, I think it was a bit of an unwise comment. I think it's actually quite dangerous to use the term worst case scenario in the current circumstances, because we've got a very flat confidence surface about what could happen here.
Yeah.
Frankly, 3.7% is actually probably becoming more or less base case now in terms of what we'll see for inflation.
So I just get that clear. So you're saying that 3.7, that need to be the base position for inflation, not the worst.
Oh, I think that's not a million miles away from it, yeah.
Wow. Okay. How does the Fitch credit downgrade make Chris Luxon's year of growth look now?
Well, the credit downgrade, I think, has been brewing for a while. The ratings agencies have been telling us probably for about a year or so that we're only one decent negative shock away.
That's right.
From having that. And so here we are, like Fitch is the first guy off the rank. But
yes.
I mean, the reality is that, they were all holding out hope that we would get to surplus in 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
But you would have to ask questions about that now.
Right. Before Christmas, Treasury was betting our bond yields would be down to 4% by next quarter and stay below 4.2% for the following 3 years. Last week, they were trading at 4.658%. How optimistic is the Treasury being on bonds?
the Treasury has tended to take a pretty optimistic approach to interest rates for a while, actually. And yeah, you're right. Like, it's just not the way it's working out. New Zealand long-term interest rates are going up at the same pace as everybody else's,
Right? Yeah.
but the whole world is basically having to get their heads around. Well, what if we're in a 4 or 5% inflation environment? You can't have 10-year interest rates at 3 or 4% if that's where inflation is going to be.
Westpac and ASB predicted the last GDP rate would be 0.4. The Reserve Bank predicted 0.5. It came in at 0.2. Being an economist is often called the dismal science. How do you navigate the economy when you have erratic players like Trump preparing to dump 75 years of accepted economic doctrine?
You have to do scenarios because you don't quite know what you're going to have to deal with next. So you need to give people a good sense of what the range of possibilities are. And you also have to have a pretty broad filter with respect to Donald Trump as well. I mean, ever since he's come in, like, he has a very, very erratic communication style. He'll say one thing and then something else totally different, 2 hours later. So you've really got to take a bit of an average through and look at his incentives. And for here, I'm not optimistic that this is easy to resolve, this war, because who's got the off-ramp? Where is the off-ramp? Because there's three players here. There's Iran, there's the United States, and there's Israel. And they all need something.
Yes.
And it's not very easy, I think, for any of them to give up what it would be required to let the other person off the track.
Over the last 2 years, New Zealand has lost over 200,000 Kiwis, mostly to Australia. That loss of workers has been offset by migrant workers, but can migrant workers in a new culture, in a new home, with a new job, match the productivity of the domestic workers we've lost who understand the culture and the job? Doesn't that massive loss of workers and a replacement, doesn't that explain the lack of productivity gains in the New Zealand economy?
Frankly, we've had a weak productivity performance for more than just the last couple of years. It's something that's been going on for about 10. I mean, actually, if I look at the structure of the migrants, it's not clear to me that they're any less skilled than the people leaving. There's certainly some cultural differences, as you point out. But I saw some interesting statistics a few months ago that migrants actually do business formation at a higher rate than Indigenous Kiwis. And you can sort of understand, right? You're coming into a new country, you've got to make a new start. You've really got to kind of make a new life for yourself.
So you don't see that churn as a problem with the productivity, that those people are actually fitting quite nicely into the New Zealand economy?
No, I don't think it's a productivity issue. I think that the issue could be that it's just cyclical. Like we've had a weak labour market for a good couple of years now, and people are voting with their feet because of it.
Finally, Kelly, what do you say to whānau who were just holding on from the cost of living crisis and who are now about to get kicked in the teeth by this fuel inflation? Should they feel angry at the technocrats and the political leaders for the state of the economy that they're being hurt by?
Well, I would say up to a few weeks or so ago, things were actually looking pretty promising that they were going to get something this year. But, we aren't in any control over what people like Donald Trump do to the world. We're innocent bystanders. No one really cares what we think. We probably just have to make the best of the hand.
Thank you, comrade, for sharing your insight and oversight this evening. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.